if he's telling you that his primary residence is the state of Alabama and he is a resident citizen of the state of Alabama, then that means he had to pay taxes in this state. There's no two ways about it. You cannot be a resident citizen of a state and not pay taxes there unless you don't have state taxes there, like they do in Florida, which is why I believe, and several other people believe, he chose to claim himself as a resident of the state of Florida and not pay state taxes, which is also is the height of gall, if you think about it, to be the senator from the state of Alabama claiming a Florida residency so you don't have to pay state taxes.
Yeah, it is the height. That is right. That is the height. That is hubris to the infinite level.
Yeah.
Infinite level of hubris and arrogance and a sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
And also, I would argue, fundamentally, a lack of commitment and respect for the very people that he wants to govern.
Alrighty, welcome in. It's time for your favorite political podcast. It's Alabama Politics This Week with Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
Man, I'm good. And by the way, I just want to shout out the local liberal brigade here in Huntsville, Madison County. They had Josh and me speak at their, I guess this was their monthly meeting this past Sunday. And we were, on a slate with other speakers, but they did ask us to speak. And we had a good time, did we?
I didn't care for it. It had nothing to do with him. I have a particular aversion to public speaking. I don't care for it. I don't care for flying. There are certain things that in my life that cause me some level of anxiety, and I don't care for those things. And mostly, I've gotten to the point of life where I don't do those things. And so that's it's no. It is. I tell people it's no offense to y'all. Okay, it's none. I wish that I didn't have it. I would love to come and chit chat with you somewhere. But I don't. It's just I don't care for it. I don't care for standing up in front of a room full of people.
I was telling my lady that, and she was like, "Really?" She was just stunned, like, "Really?" Because I guess she's heard you on the podcast, and she's thinking, surely that guy doesn't have a problem talking.
Right. Yeah. I know it's the weirdest thing, but see, I'm in the privacy of my own home. I don't think about it. I don't think about it going out to the masses. I don't think that I'm talking to you. You and I are just having a conversation, so I don't think about this being something that I'm presenting to the public. I think about us just having a conversation. And so that's a completely different animal. I mean, and it's just, I'll say it like, I don't mind playing sports in front of lots of people or whatever, or doing things like that. But it's, I don't. It's just
talking.
It's just the standing. It's more of just kind of the awkwardness of standing. What am I supposed to do with my hands? And what's what's happening here? You know what I'm saying? And it's just I don't know. It just I don't know when this kind of developed. I've never been a great public speaker, I don't think, but it just I don't know. I don't care for it. So it had nothing to do with it. A perfectly great meeting, and everybody was exceptionally nice, and made it a lot easier for somebody who doesn't care for public speaking. But I just just me.
So let me set your mind at ease.
Sure.
I don't think it was discernible to people that you were uncomfortable.
Okay.
I feel like, as I reflect back on our time up there, you jumped in at the right times, and you had witty things to say. In fact, my friend Dr. Will Boyd, who was there, said he thought we did great.
Okay.
And I didn't even say to him, Josh doesn't like public speaking. I didn't even say that to him. And he just said, yeah, he said, man, you guys did great. And he said, you really did a good job. So I don't think it was discernible to people, honestly.
Right. Oh, good. I hope not. I hope it was okay for everybody, and they got at least. Well, I will say they got their money's worth. Because we didn't get any. But I mean that's which is fine. I didn't expect any. I'm just saying. So it's hopefully everybody walked away happy because and that's it's like I told you when we were talking about doing this. That's why I always whenever I get kind of trapped into doing one of these things. And I don't mean somebody tricked me into doing it, but it's one of those things where they were like, yeah, sure, just come on, anytime in the next year. And you're like, sure, a year. I mean, hell, anything could happen. I can get out of that some way or another. And then, I got the message the night before. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It's, but that's why I always do Q&A though. It's just, because it kind of takes some of it off of me and puts it onto them, and they've got to ask a question, and then we can kind of go. It then becomes this. It becomes a conversation, and I can look at one person, and we can have a conversation back and forth, and so that So those are my tricks. So if anybody else has this particular aversion to public speaking, and somebody tries to lure you into it, then just tell them you'll only do a Q&A, and just answer their questions. So, hey, before we move along, though, we need to tell you about our friends at Wind Creek Entertainment. They are still the primary sponsor of this program, and we really do appreciate them for this and for all the stuff that they do for us and for the rest of the state, and for also having 3 great resorts here in this state, two really nice ones, and then also a really nice place in Montgomery as well. My significant other is and the person who I'm related to by marriage has held several events at the Wind Creek Montgomery location. I can't tell you how great they were. The folks they always went above and beyond, and then usually wouldn't accept the money that they were trying to charge. I mean, it was, it was a nonprofit. It was a great nonprofit. And so they would just, they were so great. And that's just the way that they are. That's the way that we have dealt with them now for a couple of years, and man, it has been an absolute pleasure. Because really they don't ask us for anything and tell us to just keep doing what we're doing, and it, every now and then they say, hey, great job, and that's it. It's the only it's the only thing they say. And so look, I encourage everybody to go at least one time. I know that when you think of a casino in Alabama, that some people will think, oh, that's got to be a second rate. I'm telling you, it's not. It's not, it will rival anything that you've been to anywhere else in the country in terms of service, in terms of amenities, in terms of things to do, in terms of just the classiness of the joint. Whether it's at Wetumpka, Atmore, or Montgomery, but particularly those ones in Wetumpka and Atmore. I mean, it's so nice, and the spas are great. The restaurants are wonderful. I mean, it's just a great time. It really is.
The only other casino, well, I've been to 2 other casino resort kind of situations, one in Delaware and one in Connecticut, and it actually blew the one in Delaware out the water. The ones at Atmore and Wetumpka blew that one out of the water. The one in Connecticut was also on, was affiliated with the tribe up there, and it was nice and sprawling. But you know what I've seen in Atmore and also in Wetumpka matches up perfectly, not just in terms of the casino part of it, but also in terms of the hotels. Just really, really nice. Really nice.
So look them up online at Wind Creek Entertainment. You'll not be disappointed. Go book a stay. I'm telling you, look, if you don't have time for a stay, book a spa visit. Go in and go to one of the restaurants and just take a walk around. I'm telling you, you will not regret it. But hey, look, Valentine's Day is coming up. Get yourself some points here. I'm telling you.
There you go.
You want a nice time?
There you go.
There you go. I mean, look, it's going to be a nice room. Use it however you feel like. I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just saying. That's right.
That's right.
Got a nice shower in there too.
That's
If you want to do something a little alternative,
go to the spas,
I'm just saying.
get all loosened up. Everybody's happy, everybody's good.
Yeah.
Saying. Hey, look, you do it right. You can eat whatever you want to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Burn the calories. Do however you can. All right, look. All right, so we're going to have to open this thing with Tommy Tuberville and John Wall, because there's no other discussion taking place in this state right now than the one surrounding Tommy Tuberville and John Wall. And the reason for that is that they all right. So I'm going to diverge on these two, okay, because I think people are lumping them together. And I don't think that that's necessarily the best argument. Tommy Tuberville he doesn't live here. I've said this from the beginning. I've looked at the records. I've seen the records. I've seen what he's done. I've seen where he's been. Honestly, everybody in this state should be pissed off at the gall of this person to do what he's done for the last 7 years. Okay. And by that, I mean, he became the senator of this state because being a senator, you could just have to live here for a single day to meet the residency qualifications. Okay. But it was still a question back then. Not only that, Tuberville kicked around the idea of running for governor back in 2018. In 2017, he launched a campaign committee to run for governor and put $100,000 into it, and so was kicking around the idea. But they told him, "What do you think? What do you think stopped him?" Hey, somebody said, "Look, man, you don't meet the residency requirements. You can't do that. You've been living in Ohio up until a couple of years ago, and so you can't. There's no chance that you could do this." So he knows about the residency requirements, and he still goes and lives at his beach house in Florida. After he decides to fold up the campaign, he goes and lives at the beach house, cuts a promo for ESPN talking about how he's moved down here to the white sandy beaches in Florida. What a great place to live. That's almost verbatim what he says in the commercial. So then he's down there, decides he wants to run for Senate in Alabama. He doesn't buy anything. He leans on the fact that his wife, he might have been here for a day or so, but his wife has got this house in Auburn that she co-owns with their son, Tucker. It's a little 3-bedroom house in just a regular neighborhood over in Auburn. And they, that's good enough, I guess. For the next.
So let me ask you a quick question about that. You said her son. Did you mean her son or their son?
Yeah, their
son.
Okay.
All right. Got it. Okay. All right.
And so they are. But Tommy Tuberville's name's not on it. Now he does own some property in the state at that point. But a couple years into being the senator, he sells that off. He never, ever, ever, ever made an effort to live in this state. Not a single effort. We know of his stock trading. We know of the millions of dollars that he's made over the course of his time as a senator. All right. We know of all these things. He never bothered to buy a piece of property to make himself even close to an Alabama resident. Not even an Alabama landowner. He doesn't even own land in this state. I mean, his wife does. Wife owns that house that they use as a game day house, but that he doesn't. Never does it. Never moves, never makes an effort to move. Even when he decides he's going to become the governor of this state and going to run for governor, he still has not bought a piece of property in this state. And then has the nerve to act all indignant because people are saying, "Wait a minute, dude, you don't meet the residency qualifications, for this." I mean, that to me, I don't understand how anybody could overlook that and not think, I mean, what utter gall to just think that you could just muscle your way into this and that other people are going to ignore the law on your behalf because you just decided that you wanted to give up this safe Senate seat that you have and run for governor. And
so McFeeters, the guy who's challenging him, his Republican opponent, he is saying since the Alabama Republican Party has basically given Tuberville a pass on this, and that's holding up for now. We understand that McFeeters is going to take him to court, and then Democrats will probably take him to court if he actually wins the primary. But
Right.
but McFeeters is saying all he has to do if he wants to stop all of this, all he has to do is produce his tax records, produce his credit card records, and demonstrate from those things that he's been paying taxes in the state and that he's been, making, consistent transactions in the state, meaning, I guess, gas and whatever else, shopping and whatever else. And that would lay all this to rest. And I'm assuming you agree with that.
Yes, for the most part. I think if Tommy Tuberville turned over 7 years worth of state tax returns, showing that he filed state taxes in this state, it would basically put an end to almost all of this. I mean, in a legal sense, those tax records, if we were just strictly talking about in court, those tax records would not necessarily be the end proof that he lived here. But in the court of public opinion, I mean, pretty much, look, you got a driver's license here, you voted here, you paid state taxes here. Okay, you know what? You're a resident. You paid taxes here, you're a resident. I think most people would agree with that. However, on the flip side of that, if you don't have those tax returns for all 7 years, you got yourself some trouble. Because, and I'll tell you why you have some. And people, look, Republicans try to laugh this off or dismiss it or whatever. You do, take it however you want to. I'm just telling you what the laws are. All right. And the law is that you've got to vote where your primary residence is. All right. That's the law. And if he's telling you that his primary residence is the state of Alabama and he is a resident citizen of the state of Alabama, then that means he had to pay taxes in this state. There's no two ways about it. You cannot be a resident citizen of a state and not pay taxes there unless you don't have state taxes there, like they do in Florida, which is why I believe, and several other people believe, he chose to claim himself as a resident of the state of Florida and not pay state taxes, which is also is the height of gall, if you think about it, to be the senator from the state of Alabama claiming a Florida residency so you don't have to pay state taxes.
Yeah, it is the height. That is right. That is the height. That is hubris to the infinite level.
Yeah.
Infinite level of hubris and arrogance and a sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
And also, I would argue fundamentally a lack of commitment and respect for the very people that he wants to govern.
That is 100% true.
That he could say, I'm representing you, but I don't want to pay taxes like you.
That's right.
I'm your governor, but I don't want to pay taxes like you. My God.
I know but one other one. Well, of course it's appalling. That's why I keep chasing this and keep banging this drum. So, but here's the other thing. Now there are a couple of legal problems that Tommy Tuberville has, but one of the biggest is this: the only way that you can cast a ballot in this state for our statewide offices and for our for the federal offices, the folks that run, in Congress and wherever, and here, is to be a resident of this state. And if you're not a resident of this state and you cast a ballot for those people, that is voter fraud, and that is a felony, and that is what David Cole, a former House of Representatives member from Alabama, went to jail for. And it's not just fraud for Tommy Tuberville. It could also be fraud for Mrs.
Now, when you said that to me earlier before we started recording, I thought, wow, I'd never thought about that. That she could be implicated. And I'm wondering I would assume, if he's got even if he's even remotely inclined to be a good husband, I'm assuming he's never thought about that.
Well, this is basically what ended, is my understanding, ended the case against David Cole and led to him pleading guilty. Was his wife was under the gun as well for voting outside of her district, and they decided not to press charges in exchange for him doing this. But because I'm assuming. And, the funny thing is Suzanne Tuberville, who's his wife, who from all indications is a perfectly nice lady. And I'll say this, as well. I dislike the way Tommy Tuberville has behaved since he has been in politics tremendously. I think he has been an absolute clown. He has been a clown that has preyed upon people and pandered to all the wrong people, and has been somebody who is utterly dangerous and useless in Congress. That said, in his previous life as a coach, I liked him quite a bit, and I think is somebody who before all this I would have called a nice guy. A nice guy, a nice, normal guy. And so I don't come into this with any ill will, and I don't come into it with ill will simply because he chose a different team than me. There are lots of people on the Republican side who I count as friends today, who we disagree with each other and argue back and forth and stuff, but I think are decent people and are good people at heart. And I think I've heard the same thing. I know some people who know Suzanne Tuberville who like her a lot, and so I'm not approaching this as bad people. I do think it takes an extreme amount of gall and entitlement to believe that you can be the senator from Alabama and live in Florida and claim a Florida residency to get rid of your tax obligations. But she actually, on paper, has a better case for being a resident of this state than Tommy Tuberville does. The problem is, since she owned the house there since 2018, but the problem is that I'm assuming they have filed taxes jointly, so like most married couples do. And if that's the case, and they filed those as Florida residents, if she voted in the state of Alabama, she's got problems as well. And look, this is all down the line. And hey, I don't know for certain that Tommy Tuberville doesn't have the tax records. Maybe he does. I will say, though, I will say this. They were asked for those records during this hearing. Let me back up and make this clear. There was no hearing. That when this challenge was presented to the candidate committee within the Alabama Republican Party, they were asked for records, and part of those records were tax records, and they come out and made a big case about, hey, we're gonna give you these things that utterly clear this, and they gave them a driver's license and a voting record. And they did not turn over the one set of documents that would have put all of this to rest and ended the whole thing. And that's tax returns.
Which makes, and I was going to say, and that's what makes us suspect that he doesn't have that information, because if he had it, he would have presented it, and then we wouldn't even be talking about this right now in all likelihood.
Yeah. No, we wouldn't. And it's, it just, man, when you go back through his records on stuff like what he expensed through his Senate account and what he expensed through his PACs, it's so clear and obvious that he doesn't live here. He doesn't live in the state, that he was living at his beach house in Florida. And that's, this is a nice beach house. It's a great place to live. He was right in the commercial. Well, the white sandy beaches, what a wonderful place to live. It was great. Yeah. It's a nice place. But let me give you just an example. And I think McFeeters actually also brought this up in a social media post. In 2021, when he first took office, on his Senate expense accounts, there are, it lists all the different things for travel and whatnot. Senators travel, breaks it all out. And there are multiple flights for the year there, which are broken out for his travel. The first 9 of those for the year are all to Gulf Coast airports. Every single one of them. As a matter of fact, for the entire year, I'm not saying there wasn't one that's buried inside of some of the other charges on there, but for the flights that are broken out, and specifically for him, and I would question that, I'm going to say I'm almost positive there was not a flight that landed in the state of Alabama that he was on board. So, I mean, you tell me, where he lived. And I will say that's also another little legal issue that he has, because expensing flights through your Senate account to someplace other than your home state is illegal. It's a personal gain, and an ethics problem.
So I just, and I had this question when I was reading your column yesterday or whenever it was. I was wondering, okay, when you say Gulf Coast airports, I mean Alabama does share the Gulf Coast with Florida, so
Right.
I'm wondering, okay, so what does that mean? So I'm looking at I went on Google here, and there are 5 Gulf Coast airports that are listed. 3 of them are in Florida. 1 is in Alabama, which is the Mobile Regional Airport, and the other one is in Gulfport, Mississippi. It's the Gulfport Biloxi International Airport. So I guess it's Gulfport/Biloxi. So you're saying that the Gulf Shores airports that you're talking about were either I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Gulf Shores, there's 2 in Alabama. Gulf Shores, Alabama has an airport also. So you're saying that it wasn't the Gulf Shores, Alabama airport or the Mobile, Alabama airport that he was flying into?
No, he flew into Fort Walton, Destin, and Panama City.
Okay, I see Fort Walton here. I see Pensacola International Airport.
He never flew into there. He flew into Destin, Fort Walton, and Panama City.
Okay, it doesn't list Destin as having an airport, but okay. All right. No, I'm sorry. Yes, it does. I'm sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah. So those were all the ones that he flew in. And here's another one. Here's another little tidbit. There are also tens of thousands of dollars in charges to a shuttle service called 30A Taxi and Shuttle that coincide with most of his airport trips. So basically, he's landed at one of these airports, and there's a shuttle car that's coming to pick him up and taking him to his house. And I mean, it just, you know what I'm saying? And there's just more and more, but equally as important in all that is the fact that there is nothing that ties him to Alabama with any sort of same consistency as the stuff down in Florida. But again, all of this, that all makes a good record. The tax returns are the biggest deal. The tax returns are if he didn't file them here, then he's hosed in a number of different ways. I think, because I do think that. So here's the process. So right now we're still going through this stuff with the party. And honestly, that's probably the best option for the Alabama Republican Party is for this thing to come to some conclusion there if they're going to end up removing him from the ballot, because at this point they still now get to pick. They could replace him. The party could replace him on the ballot. It wouldn't just automatically go to McFeeters. They could put in another person if they so chose to do so. Then. Let's say it goes on through, and we come to the primary. I'm going to assume the day after the primary, somebody in this state, and people say, well, the Democrats are going to do this. I actually think it's going to be some Republicans who do this. I think it's going to be a group of Republicans who file a challenge called a quo warranto challenge to him.
Why do you think
that? I've just heard from a lot of people that have. Listen, man, I've done a lot of stories. I have never gotten the correspondence from a story like this ever. It is. I think honestly, man, I almost want him to stay on there because I would like to see what the outcome is, because Tommy Tuberville has alienated a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, he is. We've heard about the problems with the business community and how they are distrusting of his readiness and the seriousness with which he's going to take the job. But he is also pissed off just scores of like county party folks and women's groups and this Republican group and that Republican group because he's just ignored them. He's flat out ignored them. The campaign has not responded to stuff. They've not set up any sort of actual campaign stops or anything like that. And it's, and he's running around acting as though he's basically already governor. And it's just rubbed a lot of those people the wrong way to the point where I would not be surprised at some of these groups. Now, obviously, I don't think the county Republican parties, but I think some of these groups might start inviting other candidates from possibly other parties to have some conversations with them, and just to talk things out. So, but that aside, I just, I think that, that's interesting. So there's going to be that challenge that's filed, and that's going to be in court, and that's going to be his biggest problem. All right. Now, people say, well, there's no way they're going to get that through. And I think that's accurate. There's no way. I think they're going to push it as fast as they can, but I just can't see that getting up to the Alabama Supreme Court and all the challenges and things that are going to go along with this, and it getting anywhere kind of close to a conclusion before the election, because you've got from May to November to get that done.
Yeah.
And I just can't see that happening. However, May to November, that's 6 months. That's when you're doing an expedited case and you're doing it in a court like the Montgomery County Circuit Court, where Tommy Tuberville isn't going to have a lot of friends on the court, and they're going to just be deciding this thing on saying, hey, you're right, we need to get this thing on pushed through, and let's just let the chips fall where they may. Well, they start pushing through some discovery, and Tommy Tuberville's got to go and do a deposition, and Tommy Tuberville's got to turn over those tax returns, and Tommy Tuberville's got to turn over those credit card receipts, and Tommy Tuberville's got to turn over all these other documents, and those things become public. Yeah. Well, now you're in a situation just like David Cole was, because if you remember, it wasn't the conclusion of that case that got David Cole. It was the fact that the information that came out in the middle of that thing landed on the AG's desk. And the AG said, hey, that's voter fraud. And even though I'm Steve Marshall and I don't like to do anything, I've really got to do something here. And they went out and busted him for that.
Well, in this particular case, because we're talking about a federal level office, even though it's still an Alabama electorate that would be would be selecting the person. Are you saying that you think the AG could get involved?
I do. Yes. Yeah. I think if it is proven that he has voted outside of his district, and I'll say this. So you get into this situation where you've got to make a determination if you're Tommy Tuberville on here, okay? Because it's an either or proposition at a point. Either you are an Alabama resident, like you're claiming to be in order to run for governor, and you then owe taxes, or you're not, and you're ineligible to run for governor, and you don't owe the taxes. But if you're saying you are, and you know what I mean? Now you got taxes that you owe, right?
Yeah.
So now you've committed tax fraud.
Assuming that he hasn't paid any, that he can.
Yes, of course.
He's never paid any. Yeah.
Right. And so
let me ask you this. I mean, he's got. I mean, as a U.S. senator, I would just assume. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe you can't really assume this, but I would have assumed that he would have had enough people in his orbit, from staffers and colleagues all the way up to the RNC, who would have said to him, yo, man, this isn't going to fly because of A, B, C, D, and E. And you could be setting yourself up for, not just political embarrassment and putting your seat in jeopardy and putting the party in jeopardy, but also perhaps putting yourself in a position where you'd be charged with a crime or two. Wouldn't you assume that somebody in his orbit would have been like, yo, man, you can't, this isn't going to work?
I think we make those assumptions a lot of times. And I think the really smart politicians and the really smart people, and the really self-aware people, surround themselves with those types of folks. I'm not necessarily sure Tommy Tuberville falls in those categories. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I think that there are people around him that are lawyers. And I think that they've run this thing up the flagpole. But I'll say this: I got a call from a very prominent Republican who had kicked around the idea of running for governor, and had examined a bunch of different things related to Tuberville's residency, and how eligible he was going to be and stuff. And they said, with their attorneys that they had spoken to, their primary everyday attorneys, they didn't know about the Quo Warranto challenge. It had never been brought up to them. That they thought there was just the two. And I would say, in talking to some of the other folks, Barry Ragsdale is a guy that I talk to a lot. He's a attorney that's done a lot of work for the Democratic Party. He is one of the smartest guys that I know. And especially when it comes to the law, and he's very, very educated in election laws. And there's not a lot of attorneys who do that work. There's not a lot of money in it. It's complicated. It's messy. And so they don't, and it don't, you're basically only getting business for it once every 4 years or so, and so, for the most part. And so, it's so sporadic that you don't have a lot of people kind of practicing that stuff on a daily basis. And so, when you run across some of these folks who specialize in it, then it's kind of rare. And so, I don't know. Maybe he has some good attorneys, so I don't want to disparage any attorney they has, but maybe they're not necessarily educated in this particular field, in this line of work. And so I don't know. It's, maybe it's something that fell through the cracks. Maybe it's something that they just thought, hey, we're going to be able to muscle this thing through. We've got some assurances on this and that. We can do this. We believe. I know for a period of time there, they were actually making the argument that it didn't have to necessarily be the previous 7 years, which was a really stupid argument to make. And I think that could only come from somebody who didn't understand election laws. But right. Tuberville didn't come up with that on his own. Somebody fed him that line to say, and it had to come from an attorney somewhere down the line. And it just, and it's the same thing with the homestead exemption on the property in Auburn. Well, there was a homestead exemption on it, but his damn name wasn't on the deed, so it doesn't matter. It just, those sorts of things, they look good to say, when a reporter calls you, but they don't prove anything. And I think that he literally thought that he could just push this thing through and it was going to be not that big a deal. And I really think that they did not count on Doug running. And there being such a renewed focus on this race and the energy from the Democrats. And I don't think they also counted on Trump being so utterly unpopular nationwide and with growing discontent among the folks even in Alabama for him. And I think that all of that has kind of mixed together to this soup right now where they're in a bit of a jam. And I'll tell you, there are some real people who are worried about this. I mean,
they obviously miscalculated on McPheeters, I'm assuming as well. Because I mean, this, to me, this is really where the fundamental, hard concrete opposition starts. It starts with, McPheeters saying, I'm running against you, but I don't think you're a valid candidate, and I'm going to challenge it.
Yeah, I honestly, I'll say this. I think Ken McPheeters. People don't know a lot about him and stuff, and I don't know a lot about him, just to be honest. And he's quirky and a little crazy, and puts out and says just the most insane stuff. Sometimes put out a press release about wrecking his dirt bike, and but it's I mean, he's a little out there, but. I'll say this. I think he has captured something right now within the Republican Party, and you see it in the ballot challenges with both Tuberville and Wall. And there's some growing discontent among the regular folks there that they're not being listened to and that they're being shut out, and that there are two separate Republican parties, one for the elites and one for everybody else. And they're not happy about that. And I think that I think he's kind of latched on to something here. And, as I keep telling people, nobody likes a cheater. Okay. Nobody likes a cheater. You can talk about teams and Democrats and liberals and communists or whatever. You put a cheater in the mix and everybody dislikes that person. Okay. And that's just a fact. And I think a lot of people right now are starting to come around to the fact that Tommy Tuberville's cheating and Ken McFeeters is calling him out on it. And Ken McFeeters has the high ground right now. And I think he's playing it just about perfect so far. And so he may actually create himself a nice little campaign out of this damn thing basically whole cloth. But all right, look, we've gone too long. So we'll slide out. And we have Neil Rafferty, Representative Neil Rafferty, to come on, and Ashley Dunham, running for the Alabama Supreme Court. She's going to join us as well. And then at the backside of this, I can get into a little bit of the John Wall thing, and we can talk about that for a few minutes if that's okay with you before we get into our right wing bonehead.
Yeah.
All right, let's slide out. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment.